I love it. I love it when you have to pronounce a surname like Gindidis. I've had gingivitis. I've had people say it reminds me of gin and tonic. So lucky it's not Papadimostopoulos. But I was really proud when Jane showed that photo because I have been on some of those islands. And I'd like to welcome everyone here, but first of all, I'd like to thank VicTESOL for the opportunity that we had to embark on what was the first of the research grants and a transformative teacher research collaboration. Ekaterina Tour, who will speak to you about exactly what it is that we did, and Janine Breadmore, who's the most important part of our team, the teacher, and how that interface between teacher, digital literacies, transmedia storytelling that we chose, and the researchers interfaced. Okay, so basically, we know that the importance of digital literacy is one that has faced many of us in the TESOL context. Not just TESOL, but we also know that from all the research that students need to have digital literacy skills in this 21st century. However, in addition to complex challenges of second language, whilst adjusting and acclimatising to cultural differences, our TESOL students, and especially those from refugee backgrounds, are actually in our schools right now, and that whole problematic area of digital literacy becomes fraught with issues and challenges, both from a school perspective and both from the teacher perspective. For us, digital literacies was really important. We knew it from the research. And Mill's work, she actually talks about digital turn, and that is the increased attention that we have to digital practices in digital environments across a variety of contexts. We know that language learning cannot be separated from the development of transliteracy, the ability to read and interact across a range of platforms, tools and media. We saw that with Jane's work, the incredible data that came just from that photography and the spaces they talked about, and technology spaces where they learnt how to play basketball just from an online game. So research in the new literacy studies has similarly reflected the changing emphasis from research of print-based reading and writing practices to include new textual practices. But the challenge was multifaceted. The lack of suitable resources and pedagogical tools to teach digital literacies in EAL contexts is great. So when we looked at this funding, we thought, what can we do that is already being done in a school? What can we do with a teacher where there is already a unit of work, but we want to add a dimension of digital literacies that takes on a whole lot or a complex suite of genres? So whilst the challenge was multifaceted, we actually chose transmedia storytelling. Now, it sounds like a fantastic, wonderful way of saying something quite complex. We're doing transmedia storytelling. People are quite impressed. But what is it? Although it might sound like an exaggeration, it redefines what stories are and what they mean in the 21st century. We know that storytelling is one of the most important things we do as TESOL teachers. Although stories have been told across mediums in the past, the affordances of new technologies and the saturation of media in different forms is reshaping when and how these stories are told. So broadly, transmedia are media that tell stories across different mediums, from books to screens to apps to physical objects. Transmedia relies on stories told on more than a singular platform. It also has the active participations of students who are actually in these contexts. If you can think of television shows that extend their narratives through online content to geospatial gaming, such as Pokemon Go, you'll get a taste of what transmedia could be. In this research project, different parts of a story are dispersed across digital spaces. Each part then makes a unique contribution to an understanding of the learning as a whole. It is project-based and student-centred. And what we really wanted was engagement. We knew that the sort of program we would have with a teacher would be about digital skills such as emailing, digital skills such as accessing the internet. But how do we actually make that really exciting? That's why we chose transmedia storytelling. And we believed that it was really appropriate for EAL learners. The aims of this project, well, it was collaboration. How does a teacher educator who hasn't been in front of a TESOL class for maybe 6, 7 years, sometimes even more, collaborate with a teacher in the field? To plan, implement, and evaluate a transmedia storytelling unit to gain better understanding of the approach. This whole project has been transformational. We actually did transmedia, so Janine worked with us and she learnt about transmedia. We actually looked at transmedia storytelling from a teacher lens. How practical is it? Can it be done? Are we oversimplifying it? Is there what is the reality in the school? We wanted to develop and disseminate a web-based toolkit for EAL practitioners to support teaching digital literacies. We wanted a flexible framework. We knew that this was not going to work if it was not flexible. A set of teaching resources, something that you can all take away. We want to look at impact in research, not just wonderful journal articles that you don't have time to read, but can teacher and researcher collaborations provide more than that, which is as important, but we need resources. So, as I welcome Ekaterina Tour, in what ways does transmedia storytelling support refugee students' learning? What are the features of transmedia storytelling when developed in an EAL context? What are the main challenges for our teachers, in this case Janine, and you will hear her voice, in planning, teaching, assessing transmedia storytelling, and what was the partnership like? Our research site, Term 2 this year, language school in a Melbourne suburb, a teacher and her Year 7 class, 13 students. 7 students, refugee or refugee-like status, Burma, Iraq, Iran, Myanmar, Malaysia, Thailand, all had interrupted schooling. No access to technologies at home, 5 out of the 7 refugee students. Their digital literacy skills are learnt in our contexts. School access to technologies, significant filtering and blocking for safety reasons. Curriculum focus in Term 2, email literacy. And I hand you over to my colleague and one of the members of this group, Dr. Ekaterina Tour.
So I'm going to tell you quickly about the project and different phases of the project. We have just finished the implementation of the unit and data collection, and there were 3 main phases in this project. So we started with collaborative planning, and we worked together as a team with our teacher and a few other researchers because we really wanted to contextualize this unit in the context of the school and in the context of Janine's class. So their needs and their interests, their preferences, and their access to technology. So we've done a lot of work together, and basically we've designed teacher's guide to support teaching of the unit. The next phase was implementation, and in this phase Janine got her teaching guide, and she's done an amazing job by adapting and changing and improving the unit, because definitely there was some flexibility and some work had to be done to improve and make sure it works in her context. And she also taught this unit and was collecting data as she did. So in the final stage evaluation, we've collected some evidence about students' learning. That was our main interest. And we were also interested in teachers' evaluation of the unit, what she thinks about the unit, its flexibility, if it's practical enough, can it be done in some other context, so teachers' evaluation and interview with her. So the first element of this transmedia storytelling unit is narrative itself. And the title of the narrative was The Compendium of Close Shaves. So the unit was inspired by the film which Janine wanted to use in her teaching, and I think you're all familiar with this. It was Wallace and Gromit, A Close Shave. So Janine wanted to use this film, and we've decided to extend what was shown in the film. So we've done a bit of work before and after the film itself. We had one main character, the cheese knife, and he initiated and he actually communicated with children using a wide range of channels. A lot of emails, definitely, because the focus was email literacy. But as Maria has just mentioned, it's not only technology. Transmedia means multiple channels, including physical objects. And it was absolutely interesting to hear Janine's stories about students' excitement when physical objects were delivered on behalf of the cheese knife. So the cheese knife set up a task for students. There were many different activities in which they had to engage, but the overall aim was to contribute to the compendium of close shaves. So it's project-based learning. Students had to collect stories, and they also had to create their own story of a close shave. So because if we collect stories like this, our world becomes luckier. And if people are lucky, the world is happier. So it was a big kind of interesting and fantastic narrative behind this learning unit. So students understood really what was the point of collecting these stories and looking at close-shaped stories. And there was another character, the bad character, the spiked collar, which is my favorite. And I tell you why. Because having a bad character in the narrative helped us to engage in some critical thinking about email safety and safety online. So he was provocative in certain parts of the story. And the second element of this unit was learning unit itself. So there were 9 units, and I think Janine extended them to 10, depending on students' needs. So as I've said, the focus was email literacy. And what I really liked about the unit is that we wanted to take it beyond operational skills. So yes, it's important to be able to use emails effectively and navigate technology and digital spaces. However, we believed it's more than this. So the unit also focused on cultural dimension of email literacy, which is contextualizing emails, thinking about audiences and context, but also about critical thinking and critical literacy in the context of emails. And in this part, we've looked at email safety and what can be done if people get unsafe emails. This unit had a certain degree of flexibility, which means Janine could use different strategies and approaches as she taught this unit and worked with students on different activities. There were 2 assessment tasks to check students' understanding and engagement. And another important thing to mention is that the teacher's role is very important because teacher acts as characters. So the cheese knives emails and the spiked collars emails were all done by Janine. So it was another point of feedback, I guess, in some parts of this narrative. We have just finished data collection, but I'm so happy to have Janine as a part of this presentation team today because you'll hear her voice and you'll hear what she thinks about the unit, and I think it speaks much more better than any data and quotes I'm going if I wanted to show them on the slide. So please, Janine.
Yeah, hi. A few things I want to talk about. The students, when they came, they had these newspapers delivered to their class. And part of the game or the fiction of it, we pretended that I didn't know where they were from. Who sent these? Why are they here? Students initially were a bit confused. They didn't know what to do. And then they sort of realised they were in part of a game that I was playing with them. They suspected I was sending them emails and doing the stuff, and they were trying to catch me out, to catch me doing it. So they got very engaged in the whole process, which was great. It was a mixture of, they were having fun, so they wanted to catch me out, but didn't really, because maybe if they caught me out, we'd stop the game. So it was at that tension. So it was really good with the students' engagement. Collaboration. What was nice, we're a small school, so you could get other teachers and some of the other staff on board. So delivery of papers. I rang through to another teacher's classroom and put them on speakerphone, pretended that the phone wasn't working, that I couldn't hear. The other teacher is saying no, doesn't know where she's come from. I got the secretary involved. When another thing was delivered, the secretary rang through to the class. I had to send a student off to get another package, which was nice to have other teachers involved and other staff members involved because there was a whole sort of school community sort of atmosphere happening and people were asking, how's that project going? Which was quite fun. Flexibility. What was nice with working with Ekaterina and Maria was they were very flexible. I've been in projects before where they say we want this cohort of students and isolate them from the rest and just teach those. And you think that's really unnatural. No one teaches like that. You've got a class with mixed ages, mixed abilities, and they let me teach as a whole class, a real life class. So that was good. Also, I was told I could adapt the materials, which you need to do. Nothing can be written for your class, but you can get a unit and adapt it to the needs of your class, which is important to be able to do. Dealing with technology. I can hear the voices, everyone going, yeah. Part of the project was having, I've set my time and I've just turned it off, so you'll have to nod me, but it's time. The students were to receive emails and send emails. And I thought I'd check the technology, as you do, and then it came to the day, yes, they were all getting the emails, but they couldn't send them. Oh, sorry, no, the other way around. They couldn't send from a Gmail account to their account. And I'm thinking, we did a few workarounds. It's always good to have the school technician on site. And I'm thinking at one stage, this isn't going to work because they can't email out and in. We hadn't paid a bill to Semantic, which is part of the problem of small schools, though. We have a filtered emails. Whoa, we have a... Don't lean on the keyboard. I'm good at technology sometimes. We're a small school. We have a filtered email systems. Semantic charges $5,000 a year for that. And you're thinking, we end up getting a different system in place, but it took time. Onto the second page. It also meant it interrupted the flow of the project a bit. So, responses to email were supposed to be automated, that they had an automatic response, and that wasn't happening. So one of the downsides was there was a bit of a lag sometimes in the lessons. You're wanting to keep the momentum going, and it's not happening. So you sort of had to have two things going at once. You do a little bit of the technology and then go on to something else and then go back. Also, those of you in the smaller settings know that the kids don't come with their own devices. You have to share. So it can be time-consuming. When you go to the class, you have to pre-book the laptops. The kids have to open them. At the end, they have to shut down and put away so the next class can use them. It's not like they've got them open and ready to go all the time, and that can interfere. Also, we were a bit limited on some of the things that we would have liked to do. And because it was a research project, we sort of didn't want it to go wrong. So we're thinking, you could use this and this and this, but we weren't sure if it would be blocked, if the bandwidth would be enough. So we didn't for this project. I was thinking if I did it again, then you'd be able to experiment as a teacher, and if something didn't go wrong on the spot, you just use something else. But because of the nature of research, we didn't give that a go. Whoa.
You went to the first one.
That's nice of it. The interesting thing. We were looking at, could the kids send emails? Could they do it safely? Did they have the right technique in writing an email? Also, would they reject a bad email? I was interested to see, were they transferable? After the project, would they remember how to do it? Sometimes our students will learn something in one class, and when they go to the next class, they don't make that connection that, it's still an email, but now you're in humanities. I'm figuring that lots of you have the same sort of experience. But what I did find this term, some of the students that were in the project, when they got onto the email system, they could open them. They knew initially they needed a lot of help. They could write the address correctly. They could write a subject. Sounds small things, but my students found that very hard initially. But what they didn't know was how to put the correct writing or parts of the email, how to do that politely. So, of course, you teach something once doesn't mean the kids have learned it. You have to reinforce over different things. What I found was to assess the students was a bit hard in the context of giving them a formal assessment and finding out what they knew or not. Because it was part of a game, you couldn't say, it's like a game, here's a test, because that would be blowing the game. Also with IT, there's a lot of collaboration happens. If one student can't do something, usually another student helps. And you actually want to encourage that. So if one student sees someone else doing something or sees that they know, they'll go and ask them. So I thought, I'm not going to stop them doing that just to get an accurate assessment of what they're up to. But the fact that they're asking and knowing it, I think, is part of their learning skill. They're learning how to learn. So I saw that as important. Also, the nature of an ESL class is to scaffold where needed. So some students could do independently and some needed a lot more help. But that's part of the deal as well. Fiction or real world. One of the limitations maybe with this approach was it was obviously a game in fiction, but part of what they had to do was send formal emails to someone else. But they knew it was fiction, so the level of their formality went down. So they weren't taking seriously, but one student offered to write a really insulting one to this person. You thought, oh, okay, because it's part of the game, that's what you want to do. But yeah, so some limitations there, but it might have been in the way I set it up. Okay, I'll hand back to Maria by the look.
All of us. Questions? It is so hard to capture what Janine did just in those minutes, because we had 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and then I forgot to put my timer on, but we were okay. So basically it was a teacher-researcher collaboration. The toolkit and example will be available on VicTESOL website in 2018. It was an exciting journey, and it was one that was transformative for all of us. But the students actually moved in language into that conceptual framework of this is a game, and engagement was very, very high. So hoping that you'll access the materials, and we've got a few minutes for questions. So please ask us any question you would like, and Janine and Ekaterina or myself are here to answer. So if we have any questions of a practical nature, of anything you like, and I urge you to try and look at teacher-researcher collaboration. Great journey.
Did you use something as a model?
Sorry?
Did you use something as a model for this unit of work?
We did. Did we use something as a model?
To design, you want to design?
Yes.
Yes,
We
we're
did.
using Bill Green's 3D model for literacy or email literacy, or which is kind of a model of literacy which can be applicable in any context. And we're also using a model for writing a narrative. So the narrative itself has a model, how to write a good narrative for a learning unit, and then learning unit also has a model. So, and all this stuff will be available in the teacher's guide. So yes, the whole idea is that we design a guide and teachers can design their own transmedia narrative.